everybody, good morning. It's Jean here. Truelove Quilts for you. And today we're doing our block party, Jean's Block Party 2019. We are up to block number 15 and 16. We are moving right along. Before I get into my block, I want to I just want to say I was going on my web page, the whateverquiltclub.com, on the viewer blocks that you're sending in. There's about 30 of them, but I thought it was interesting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at this point, people Linda, Rosemary, Cheryl, Michelle, Lisa, and Kimberly are doing absolutely red and white fabrics. Their choices exactly like mine, red and white. There's a couple who've done a bit of black in there, but I thought it was interesting that I'm doing an incredibly red and white, shades of red and white, and 6 others are also, and yet all of the blocks are so different. Gonna be such a pretty block. And I honestly was thinking we are up to 16 blocks as of this week, but I'm wondering 42 blocks, which I know you can make. It might be a bit big because I do want to put some sashing, some fabric in between the blocks, and at the end of the day that might be a bit too much for you beginners to try to quilt. I would walk you through that process, but it might be a bit much. So I'm going to see as I go along. I might stop. I'm not sure. I might stop because I do want to add the sashing, I think, to make the blocks sing a little bit more than just sewing them together. I have attached, I will attach at the end of this video, a photograph of my quilts laid out, 16 of them, because I haven't sent my blocks and you've only seen them one at a time. And it's a nice little quilt now, but they're just put together, you know, side by side. But I was thinking if we put it apart and put either 2-inch sashing in, you know, it might be big. I don't know. I don't know measurements. I probably could figure it out what the measurement would be, but I can't figure that out. So anyway, and also, no, let me see. Okay, we are on block number 15, and this week, this is block number 15. I said last week that I wanted to do some stars, a few more stars to add a little bit of sparkle to our quilt. And what I've done is, all this is a center square and half square triangles. However, this week I am showing you how to make 8 half square triangles at one time. 8 of them at one time. And also, although I was thinking about it, I sort of do things a bit backwards. It wasn't absolutely necessary. I don't think so. I was showing you how to do a scant 1/4 inch. Now, a scant 1/4 inch is exactly what it sounds like. People are like, oh, can you do a tutorial on a scant 1/4 inch? And I'm like, a scant 1/4 inch is a 1/4 inch with maybe 1, maybe 2 threads smaller than your 1/4 inch seam. Why professional quilters or whoever out there do scant 1/4 inches is if you have a lot of seams in a block, which I was deeming that this was a lot of seams to make up this little block, this little star here. But afterwards, because I show you how to cut these on the larger side, the individual half square triangles, I cut them down anyway. So I thought, well, I could have done a 1/4 inch seam. But anyway, you probably could do a 1/4 inch seam. I did a scant 1/4 inch, and it'll give you an opportunity to learn how to. There is blocks that you have to do a scant 1/4 inch, or else your block will end up too small. So there's two skills today we're learning, which is our scant 1/4 inch. Now again, I was addressing it in the tutorial. This block here, this pretty little star, it could have comprised 4 flying geese units. Remember last week we did the flying geese. Oh, I was corrected. this would be the goose and that would be the sky. I'm like, oh, that's the goose and those are the wings. I don't know what I'm talking about. Whatever. I like to sew. I'm not really a quilter. I don't know all the terms, I should say. I'm a quilter, but it was so funny. I was corrected. Thank you so much. This is the, is that the way? This is the goose and that's the sky? Yeah, the goose would be going forward, yeah, and that's the sky. So anyway, they're not flying geese units, they're half square triangles. Anyway, we're learning this week how to do 8 half square triangles at a time. You're like freaking out, right? It's really a cool method. I'm going to show you how to do 4 half square triangles at a time. We have been doing 1 half square triangle, right? Or we've been doing 2 out of the 1 fabric, drawing the line, going on either side of it, you get 2 half square triangles. This week, 8 half square triangles. There's our little block, number 15. I will give you a heads up for 16. And after I was done it, I thought, oh, that might be a bit much. Block number 16. Ta-da! Here we go. Another star, sort of, with lots and lots of seams and points to match. And after I was doing it, which, not bragging, of course I'm not bragging, but it came easier for me. I thought, oh, that might be a bit much for a new person. Anyway, this is number 16. I'll deal with that in our next video. This is block number 16, a little sparkling star. But for now, block number 15, another little star. I chose to do two fabrics, high contrast. I chose to do a light star on a dark background. Because I always think of a darker star on a lighter background, which I think we have 2 others similar, darker on a lighter background. So I chose to change it up this week. I did a lighter star on the darker background. There are, and I say, oh, this is, again, I think I'm trying to sound like I know what I'm saying. Oh, this is a 16 patch. It's not a 16 patch because it has this big center square. I think it has, I did this one. I got this, folks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13 pieces in this block. But you're good. You have it. Oh, another skill is, as you will see my back, I'm going to show you my lovely back. We have pressed open this seam here on those units. We have pressed them open. And I explain that on this flying geese, it's not a flying geese, it's a half square triangle, which we could have made a flying geese, but I did it this way. This center seam here is pressed open to allow for that point there to lay lovely and flat on the 4 points on the center square here. So you will see that as we go along. Our half square triangles galore, and on block 16 really galore. You'll be fine. I just wanted to thank and give a shout out this week to Charlotte Snyder and Donna Holder. Very, very, very generous tips I got from monetary tips from those 2, Charlotte and Donna. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. It's awesome. I'm very appreciative. So that's that. I'm working on my circle applique quilt, which is coming along. It's huge, or it might be huge. I just keep making circles. It's silly. Anyway, so somebody did ask, did you get a new machine? I have, as I said, I have about 5 different machines to do different things. I should get one just to do them all. I think I have one to do them all, but this one is this is an oldie but a goodie, this 20-year-old machine. My Juki is fine. It's resting right now. So that's that. I got a new ironing board cover. And I thought, somebody said, oh, could you do a tutorial on an ironing board cover? I'm like, that's a good idea. I saw one at Walmart and it was cheap. Sorry. Maybe I'll try to do one, but my tutorials, go to Walmart and get a nice ironing board cover. Done. Been there, done that, right? So anyway, here's block number 15, Jean's Block Party 2019. Keep sending in your pictures. All the pictures other than the red and white ones are different. They're fabulous. They're wonderful. It's fun. 15 and 16. Wow. Have at it, folks. Don't kill yourself making square triangles this week. You got to be precise and do it good. But you'll end up with a pretty little star. All right. Thanks a lot. And I'll be back for block number 16 and tell you all about this one too. All right, see ya. Block number 15. We're moving right along. Now, as I was showing you, hopefully, this will be a pretty star block. And I wanted to just show, I just wanted to remind you of our different blocks here. I have all my blocks laid out. We have done 2 star blocks here. And they were simple, well, they weren't simple, they were 9 patches. I just think I keep checking to see if this is in the frame. Yeah, I just think a pretty star block just adds a little bit of sparkle to our quilt. The difference is this week we are doing, instead of a 9 patch, we're doing a 4 grid unit, which will have 16. 4 across and 4 down, 16 units in this block. And also I am showing you a different way, a brand new method of making half square triangles, but I will get to that. For our cutting instructions right now, I have done this is a dark star on a lighter background. This week I'm hopefully going to be doing a light star on the dark background. So fabric A, which is my lighter fabric. Fabric A, you want to cut 1 7-inch square. Fabric A, 1 7-inch square. And then also out of fabric A, you want to cut 1 5-inch square. Our fabric B, which will be our background this week, we want to cut 1 7-inch square, and then you want to cut 4 2 3/4 inch squares. Now again, on the ruler, the 2 3/4 inch is the larger line before the 3-inch, not the tiny little one. You have 2, and then the large line 2 1/4, and then the big one in the half is the half, and then the next one is the 3/4. So you want to cut 4 2 3/4 inch squares. I used fat quarters for these, but you could get them, let me see, could you get them out of, no, you couldn't have gotten them out of your 10-inch squares. You would have needed your fat quarters, or however, or your yardage, or whatever you are using. Now, the method that we are going to be doing our half square triangles, you're going to pull up your 7-inch square. Let's put these to the side here. And we are going to be, let me just pull this camera back. Sorry about that. Let me just put this down here. Yeah. So now, on the, let's see, we can do it on the light side. On the light side, with our marker, with our pen, we are going to do a line, a diagonal line. Okay, we've done this before, and remember last week I was showing you, remember that it's the pen that's on the diagonal. The ruler is 1 thread over. So you just want to put your ruler 1 thread over to allow for your pen or your marker to go diagonal to diagonal. Hold it tightly. Mark right along there, diagonal to diagonal. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the same square. We're going to draw 2 lines this week. Diagonal to diagonal. Enough for me to see them. Now, with my right sides together, my pretty side to my pretty side, I'm going to scratch that together, and, excuse me, I'll just put a pin here and a pin here. Or if you want, you can put a pin on each corner. Because now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this over to my machine, and we're going to do a new technique. It's called a scant 1/4 of an inch. We have perfected from this line, right? What do? You stitch 1/4 of an inch on each side of the line, and then we cut the line. Well, this week, because we're trying to get 8 half square triangles. Remember, we did them one at a time. This method gives us 8 at one time. But because there's quite a bit of sewing and cutting, you're going to want to do a scant 1/4 of an inch. A scant 1/4 of an inch is basically just a hair smaller than your 1/4 of an inch. So maybe you'll want to practice that. Just a hair quarter. Just a thread width smaller than your 1/4 of an inch. It's what it sounds like, a scant 1/4 of an inch. So on this line, I'm going to put my presser foot. Now, I'm using my old machine. I can tell what is a scant 1/4. I don't have my 1/4 inch foot, but you'll have your 1/4 inch foot, and you're just going to do a slightly smaller 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to put my camera up. So I've attached my pieces together. I'm using my old machine. If this machine goes a little bit funky, you have to excuse it. Sometimes it just goes on its own. I don't know what's up with it. I think there's some thread in the presser foot. But if it does, it's not like haunted. It's just like it's weird. And sometimes I'm like, no, stop. I don't have my Juki up, but I'm using this machine for another project. So what I'm going to be doing, this isn't my 1/4 inch foot, but I will be stitching just slightly smaller than my 1/4 inch. And I know where that is. So by all means, you'll have practiced. I'll put my needle down. I'll put my presser foot down. And I know that this is just slightly smaller on the other side. I'm going to make my stitch a little bit smaller. On the other side of this line, on one side of the line, I'm doing a scant 1/4 of an inch. And only because we have quite a few seams here. And then right off. See? It's not going to stop. There you go. There you go. It's a weird machine. So now there's my scant 1/4 on that side. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Slightly smaller than our 1/4 of an inch. But right, again, away from that diagonal line. We're doing that because there are 16 units in this block. And then right off. So I have taken this over to, I've stitched on these lines, this diagonal. We're ready to cut apart. But 2 seconds, what have I done? I've just gone over to my ironing board and I've pressed that really nice, because you really want this to be fairly precise. This needs to be pretty precise. And what I'm going to do is we're going to cut these apart, but I find it very advantageous for this point to put these on a line on your cutting board. So with your longer rule, you can see where you're cutting. You're not just looking from this point to this point usually, because this really has to be done precisely. And you want your line, which is lined up with the line on the cutting mat, and the line down here on the cutting mat, as you can see. And you'll see why we're doing this. I might have to shift this because my camera's in the way, but if you don't have to shift your fabric, it's a good thing. But if it gets unshifted, it's fine, because you can just always scratch it back together. But the cutting of this is important. So right now, what we're going to do is I'm putting my ruler on the line that we've cut, just one way, and I'm lining it up to make sure I'm going really diagonal to diagonal. Hands in the way, sorry. I'm going to open my blade, my cutter. I'm doing it very slowly and carefully, right through that intersection and right off. Close my cutter, and then I'll pick up my ruler. Now I'm going to come back here. My block has not shifted at all. That's good. And I'm going to go diagonal to diagonal. I'm going to find the line on my ruler, on my cutting mat. Mine's about 1/4 inch above, and I can see that I'm going to be cutting right on that line. And I'm nice and straight. I'm nice and straight. Cutting right on that line. Carefully and slowly. Now, this is the tricky part. And I'll open that, and I'll pick my ruler up. Now, what we want to do is we're going to cut these 2 more ways. We're going to cut this block, and I am going to shift it now. I'm going to shift it, and I'm going to make it nice and square on my mat, on my ruler here, on my lines, making sure that this center point here, am I in the frame? Yeah, is nice and in the frame. These pieces are nice and scratched together where we've cut them. And that's pretty darn good. That's pretty good. That's just lifting up. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to find the middle point of this part here. I'm going to find the middle point, and I'm going to put my ruler on. I'm having to reach through the tripod here. Scratch these together. Whoops. This is where you have to be careful. Scratch them together, and you'll have the four corners here. You're going to be basically, hopefully you can see it. You're going to be cutting through. There's like a little square a square of stitches where we've stitched it this way and this way twice, right? Well, you're going to be cutting through on this. I can't really show you the diagonal to there, the diagonal to there, and straight off. If you can see it, the corner of that square up, and the corner of this little square here down. Once you do it, once it's in front of you, you'll see what I mean. So you're going to be cutting on the diagonal, and I'm making sure that my ruler on my cutting mat is perfectly square, because we want these nice and straight, this unit here. So I'm looking here, I'm looking right at the middle, and my ruler is right on that little square, and I'm assured from my mat that my ruler is nice and straight on the line up and down. So when I go to cut from here to there, it's a nice straight line. So I'm going to open up my rule cutter, and again I'm going to check that it's on that little square, diagonal to diagonal, with the blade right up. I'm going to cut right through that. Not going to shift. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing. I haven't stitched this in dark thread, obviously. I've done it in white thread, but I'm going to find my little square, my little corner to corner square, and then I'm going to line my ruler up on my line here on my cutting mat, so it's not shifted. So I'm going to find my little square, diagonal to diagonal. Once you do this, you'll see what I mean. This is the most important part. Open it up, and I'm going to cut right through. Now, we have, ta-da, we have 8 half square triangles. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to take these up, we're going to set that seam, and we're going to roll that unit right up to the top. Now, we are going to trim these down. I have erred on the larger side. We are going to trim these down, but I'm going to now take this over to my ironing board, and I'm going to set all of these seams, and I'm going to roll this up to the dark side, and then I'm going to trim off all of these dog ears. Remember, we have these little dog ears here. I'm going to trim them off. I may not have to trim them off because we're going to be trimming these down, but I'll trim them off anyway, and then we'll trim them down. So what I'm going to do, you're going to set your seams, roll up to the dark side or to your contrast, whichever it may be, whichever you have deemed to be for your fabric A and fabric B. Mine's I'm rolling up to the dark side. And I'm going to do 8 half square triangles like that real quick. I have cut my all my dog ears off. There's all my dog ears. Now, the method that I'm doing, that I explained to you in the beginning, is I have cut this 7-inch square a little bit larger. I have cut it a little bit larger, because now we're going to square these down. These measure at 3 inches. We want this piece here, this unit here, our half square triangles, to be 2 3/4 inches. But I just feel the way that we've cut them, I'm going to square this right up here on the board, And then when you have your ruler with your diagonal, remember you have your nice rule with your diagonal, I'm going to square these down to 2 3/4 inches. I'm going to take them down to 2 3/4 inches. We have this unit here, our fabric B, which is 2 3/4. This unit here is taking, for the most part, 2 3/4 inch units. So what I'm going to do is 1/4 inch, but I didn't want to, I wanted to err on the cautious side this week to be able to cut down our squares exactly the way we want to, instead of cutting them exact and messing about. So I'm cutting 1/4 inch off on my 8 half square triangles. So that's what I'm going to do next. I got my handy dandy little design board here. So now I'm going to put my block together visually. I'm going to take my 5-inch square in the center. Now I have to remember that my block is white and dark, as it were. So I'm having to figure out, I'm going to put my dark on the outside, my 4 squares, and I'm going to visually build my block. So there's my 5. Now I have to be aware that my star points are going, look like a star. Yeah. So, an experienced quilters, you more experienced quilters, you will see that this unit here, we could have made a flying geese, right? We made flying geese last week. But I've preferred to do the half square triangle method myself. So that's fine. So now I got to figure out where my star, my white star point, my dark points are there. I'll get there. There you go. And we can see my star. I'm trying to make it like with the seams. We can see my star taking shape. No, it's not that one. It's that one. So the placement of your, where is it? Of your blocks, there you go. My star, there you go, is coming to life. There it is, and nope. There we go. No, is that right? Is that right? No, that's not right. Ah, there we go. There we go. See? So you have to, that's why there you go. So let me step back. Yeah, there is my star. So you have to, I like this way to do it visually, because it's a much easier way. Now, what we're going to do is, it's not a 9 patch. We're over 9 patches for this week. Maybe. I don't know what my next block is going to be. But what we're going to do is we're going to do these row by row. I'm going to take this over to my machine. And look at that. Isn't that the coolest thing? So I'm going to take this over to my machine, and I'm just going to concentrate on this row right in front of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pretty side over to this unit here and stitch. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing here and stitch my 1/4 inch seam. And then these 2 units then are going to be flipped over and are going to be stitched there. So you have a lot of seams this week. And then you'll have done your top row, and then the exact same thing with our center row. I'm going to stitch this unit here, making sure that this point matches, and then we're going to stitch this unit, and then we're going to pop that over to the center unit and do our second row. We're going to do the exact same thing on our last row. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to just go put my block together. I think it's a really good idea to have this right next to my sewing machine. I'm going to take it over, right over there to my sewing machine over there, and I'm going to, you know, pin them, put them together, and I'll be back with my finished block. I wanted you to see, I've just gone over to my sewing machine and I've stitched some of this together, but I just wanted to show you my progress here and what you are aiming for when you're putting this block together. If you have, I haven't pressed anything or anything. I've just come off my sewing machine. I've done my top row. I haven't finished my second row yet, but I've done my bottom row. Now, as you can see, if you have cut and trimmed your units here down to your 2 3/4, and if you, when you go to sew them together, these half square triangles, you will see that this, when I've sewn that together, that block, that point matches up. I've sewn that very well, and I have not done a scant 1/4 of an inch. I have sewn that a 1/4 of an inch. I have sewn that a 1/4 of an inch right there, okay? And then you will see, there's my 1/4 of an inch up there. There's my 1/4 of an inch point there. There's my 1/4 of an inch. So when I make this block here, when I sew these units together here, that I will have 1, 2, 3, 4 nice points that will have not been cut off. So when I go to sew this, what I am going to do is I'm going to press, and this is a first pretty much, I'm going to press that seam open. I'm going to press these units here, this dark, I'm going to press that open. It just makes a bit more sense at this point to press this unit here open on that unit right there, to give us a nice crisp edge to sew to. So I've done that. These I can press over to the dark side. The fabric's telling me it wants to go to the dark, but my center one, I'm going to carefully open up, and I'm going to press that over to the dark. I'm going to press that open. Then when I go to sew my 3 units together, my 3 rows together, that these points here are going to lay lovely and flat, and my block will be nice and flat. So I'm going to go do that now. The ironing on this and the pressing on this is very important, as was my stitching. But if you have trimmed your half square triangles with that diagonal, then they'll have matched really well. Now, before I stitch my unit together, I have my 3 rows here. I wanted to show you the back of my block here. Okay? And I have stitched together with using the 1/4 inch seam where my points are. And if we see that right there, this unit, this block, we're going to be matching up now these bits here, okay, that seam there, that and that seam there. But if you noticed, again, I mean, I'm sounding all airy-fairy, I know that, but as I was ironing my block in my 3 rows, my fabric told me that these rows here wanted to be pressed, because there's all that lump of fabric that wanted to be pressed inside. And even that's so it's the light to the light. But these units here, because of the configuration of the seams, wanted to be pressed up to the dark. So now, and then the opposite, so it's always opposite. So my back, as you can see, will look and lay as nice as my front. After I nest, I'll put this pretty side over to there, and I'll nest these 2 seams, and then I'll put this pretty side over to there, and I'll nest those 2 seams, and our block will be done. There you go, ta-da! There is my finished number 15 star block. A few more units. Let me just see here if it's 9. It is pretty good. Just a little bit of trimming on this side here, just a little bit big. And there's my 9.5 inch block. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 patch unit. 13 pieces in it, not 16. It would have been obviously 13, 14, 15. Oh, no, I don't know. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. It would have been 16, yeah. But it's 13 as it is now. So anyway, there is my block. It's pretty. It's a star. I like the white with my dark, because I said I had done the dark stars on the white background. So this is a white star on the darker background. So yeah, I hope you love it, folks. Thank you so much. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, ring the bell, do all that. Yeah, appreciate it. So block number 15. There you go. All right. Coming up, block number 16.